Thank you so much. You know, every session I write this thing on my note here that says record. It's just my reminder to record. And sometimes I forget to look down. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, let's get started with the hot seat part of this first. Then we're going to talk about M&E, and we're really going to break it down in a pretty fun way. So we're not going to just like look at the theory, but we're going to get some practice into it. And then the final piece of the session today is looking back into all of the texts that we've read over the last few weeks. And today we're going to make final decisions. Are we going to give them funding based on everything that we've learned? Are these proposals, are these organizations ones that we want to actually invest in and put some money in? So we're going to make some final decisions today. I know last session we didn't get to it fully. Any questions before we get started on this part? This first part? Everyone excited for the hot seat? Okay, well, let me go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is the structure for the hot seat. Imagine that you've been invited to a funder meeting. So imagine you were entering that space. The funder has already received your proposal. They received it last week, and they had enough time to read it ahead of time, and they invited you for a 15-minute chat. By the way, that is actually a very common amount of time. Sometimes you get only 15 minutes for a conversation. So it is very normal to only get 15 minutes. Imagine that's happened and they say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee, or let's do a quick call. Each of you will have about 15 minutes. Gail and I have prepared some questions ahead of time for each of your proposals based on what you've written. We're going to go through those questions. The first 10 to 12 minutes will be us asking you questions about your proposal, trying to get clarifications, really. And again, remember that we're putting on a funder hat that is not the ones that we put on. So we're going to move away from facilitator and really try to kind of simulate the funder experience. So some questions might be really tough, and some questions might be a little challenging, and we can always pause and further explain. So we can really use this time to practice. In the last 3 minutes, we'll have some space for you to ask us questions. And so if you had a funder in front of you and you could really ask them questions, what are some questions that you want to ask them as well? This is important because any kind of conversation, but especially if you're having a conversation with a funder, you don't want it to be one way on either side. You don't want to just speak to them. You also don't want them to just speak to you. So how do you balance that? By asking some questions to them is also a good practice to have. Any questions on the hot seat instructions? Okay.
No, not yet. I think once one person goes ahead, we'll all have a better idea.
Well, let's get started. Gail, are we ready for the questions? Do you have them with you?
And
okay.
Since we're really only going to be doing, it looks like 2 now, right?
No, 3, Vandana, Isha, and Ellie.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I didn't see everybody up there. Okay. And Lulu is with
Ellie. Yeah.
Yes. With Ellie, and also Aika is with Ellie.
Yeah.
Okay. So if at any time, if you want to include them, and if they want to, excuse me, answer a question, you know, or if you want to consider yourself a team at the hot seat, you can feel free to do that. We welcome that as well. Yeah, we'll address the questions to you and your team, Ellie, if they all want to participate and answer. It's an open thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, they're basically here for the M&E, but I don't want to pressure them. If they want to answer questions, that's very okay with me as well.
Okay. And it's good that they're here, because I think doing M&E is informed by mission statement, story, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's start then with Ellie. Let's have a go there. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me just a second. I'm going to put the timer on 15.
Okay, and maybe we'll go a little longer since we have just 3 instead of 4. So, okay. Okay, so I want to say, first of all, Ellie, that I think overall that this is a well-written proposal. I think your mission statement is very well written. I particularly appreciate the sort of bold, short, sort of bold-faced lines, at the beginning. And it may seem like a small thing, but for someone who reads lots and lots of grants, it's kind of like a headline, right? For a newspaper article. And then I can decide after I see that headline, oh, okay, I want to read some more. It doesn't sound very authentic, but in terms of relationship, but it does have an appeal. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm curious in the story, I got a little confused about the family structure in your personal story. I was a little confused about, can you just tell me, I'm just so curious about that. You're the last born of 9, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so what is the age range between you and the oldest in the family?
Oh my God, I think my older sister maybe around late 40s.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe 50. I'm not so sure because we never really celebrate birthdays. But yeah, so my 3 sisters were born first, like the first, the second, and the third. And then I was followed by my 5 brothers and then me.
Wow. Okay. So in that couple of decade time period, maybe, right? I don't know exactly what your age is, but there's been.
I'm 30. I'm turning 30 in August.
Okay. So in that, 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of things, either changed or didn't change between that. Would you consider yourself like a different generation?
Yes. I think pretty much, because all other brothers and like, I think my brother, we are in a difference of 2 years. The brother that comes up before me.
Yeah.
So it's a different generation from my third sister for sure.
Right. And did your parents kind of seem to be doing different, were they different kinds of parents for you than they were for your older siblings? Sometimes parents over 10 or 15 years change a little bit how they do things, right?
Yeah, for me, my mom, I was just raised by my mom. So my mom is still very conservative. She is still living her life the way that she was raised. So there's not so much of a change about like the way things are being done, the way life is being lived. So it's pretty much the same from like years and years back. But she tries to understand me sometimes with maybe like because I think I am the only person who has gone so much outside of the village, and my life has changed for the better. And I still, I'm so proud that I come from a village kind of life for sure.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that information. And I didn't really want to get too personal, but it seemed to me that I was reading between the lines that you had this experience of being of a different generation, having a different awareness, right? Maybe a little bit more modern, less fully conservative because of where you were born in the years and where you were born in your family. And at the same time, the change that may have been there for you wasn't there necessarily for your mother. And so that helps me understand that inside of you, you have this personal experience of knowing that if the parents aren't on board and the parents aren't brought up to the awareness that the child is given, it can be really, challenging. And so what you're trying to do just is really informed also by what your own personal experience was, right? So there are many young people who might be advanced, but the parents are not advanced, right? So you have to try to fill that gap. Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Abby, you want to ask another question next?
Yeah, sure. I'll actually continue on that frame with the story, and I'll start with a comment and then a question. I think one comment there that both Gillian and I agreed with was that your 4th paragraph in that story was the strongest. And the piece that you made or that you wrote about the connection with Michelle Obama and the partnership is definitely very strong. And a piece that I would recommend is to really break this down, because it felt like it was more of an asset than a story. And I think headlines really help kind of divide that section. So the first kind of couple of paragraphs are perfect for a story, but the 3rd and the 4th paragraph really felt like it was going towards assets. And I think just putting that headline would help a reader for sure. A question here is, can you further explain this partnership? Was there any funding available as part of this partnership with Michelle Obama? What that looked like? And how has that partnership evolved over time, as it seems to have happened, a bit more than a year ago?
Yeah, there were no such really funding opportunities at the time, but I think for me, this was just an opportunity that really further explained and give me an alert or like an encouragement to keep doing what I do, because Michelle also recognized what I do. I tried to keep in touch further to like email the Obama Foundation to like be in Girls Opportunity Alliance funding opportunities, but that didn't happen for me. And I am thinking probably it was because they already saw that I had an asset with She's the First as a privilege for me, whereby it was, I'm just thinking out loud, that they thought it will be easier to give maybe that those opportunities to other people because I already advantaged with She's the First. Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. That's very helpful. And again, that's a really strong paragraph. So just wanted to clarify what I think understanding what came out of that partnership will also be helpful to further explain what that asset really is. So thanks for explaining. Yael, do you want to ask the next one?
Yeah. Okay, so I want to go on a little bit and talk about the parents, right, that you've met with. You've gone into communities, you've spoken to parents, you want parents to be giving their support, right? Whether it's emotional, psychological, maybe it's financial, to encourage their children, their daughters in particular, to stay in school. And I think it's really smart that you go and talk to the parents, because they're the ones that, are going to tell you why they don't want to support their child or what they're confused about. And I guess what I got a little confused about is that what you're hearing is that the parents want to have some training, right? And if they get the training, like they have a class themselves that helps them further their economic viability, right? And their skills, then that's going to be your first entrance, is to train parents, and then hope that, I guess I got confused about how is the training for the parents a certainty, right? That their daughters will go to school. Do you sign a contract or, help me understand that.
Okay, so this is just one category that has been to us a priority, because we have done like a quota training already for like the first three months of this year, like from like January to March.
Your volume,
and how that
it's working now. Sorry, your volume went down for a couple of seconds. I don't know if it was just me, but I couldn't hear you for just a second, but you're fine now.
Okay. So what happens is there is one, as we have explained in the proposal, we meet the parents first to like figure out how can we help, because we believe that sometimes we say, let's provide sanitary pads to the girls, but we have realized in the process, it is because some of these parents never really use sanitary pads. So when it comes to the provision, they don't really see that to be a necessity for a girl to be provided. And while we give these sanitary pads, if we talk to these parents and realize, wow, so they didn't know that sanitary towels are important, they will be able to provide that to their daughters, and we won't have to be struggling as an organization to find sanitary pads to give the girls, because the parents can be able to understand that that's their priority. So coming back to the training, it is the parents that say, okay, we really want to send girls to school, but the challenge is we are not able to do that because we are poor, because we don't have the means and necessary financial sustainability to be able to do that. And this doesn't happen to all the communities. So there are other things that we do to some of the other communities, but this has been a research that has been done to these communities. And then these parents say, if we are able to obtain entrepreneurship skills for ourselves to be able to at least sell maybe or know how to keep chickens and sell eggs, then that is going to be very, very helpful for us to provide financial, materials and like take care of their educational journey at the time. So how we go about that? So for example, for what we have done already, we went to this one community in the Maasai community and we taught them about how they can use, how they can make soaps, how they can join like a group of women and men to be able to like gather money like with a small capital to do like a group business together to sell to the market and brand it and do all that. And we do translation also in the Maasai language. So after every 3 months, we want to go back and see if these activities, if these businesses, if these groups are working. So at the end of the day, we want to see, so how many girls in each household has been sent to school, and how are they doing, and what are the challenges so far? So we kind of make a follow-up to that to make sure that it is really helpful and it is working at the end of the day, because this was the request that they had. So at the end of the day, through like the community local leaders, we do follow up like that. I hope.
Okay, so if I understand, so you want in this proposal to have funds to train these parents, 50 parents, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I get it. They need money. I get it. And they need that money in order to prioritize, right? Giving the money to a school or buying a uniform or buying supplies. But how do you know? I guess there's just a part of me that's like, still the girl has to wait, right? She still has to kind of wait to go. So how do you know that, like when you say you're going to go back? So during the training, right? 50 parents, right? That could take like, what, 1 month, 6 months? I wasn't quite clear about that. And then how do you know that the girl is still going to get her needs met after that? Because there could be a lot of people selling eggs at the market. Right. And
so we know like in every parent has, let's say, 5 kids, and 2 of them are boys and 3 of them are girls. Some of them are younger, some of them are at the age of going to school. So we want to make sure that we know for sure these 50 parents have how many girls, and how many girls already don't go to school in that community. And is there a school there? And then yes, there's a school, but what's the challenge? So we have another program that helps fund the immediate need for this girl to at least continue to go to school for a few months, let's say maybe a month, and then we make follow-up to see, okay, now how is that training helping us? So we come back to like, are we continuing to support this girl by providing the tools and material needed, or are the parent now is able to take care of that? So it's like a process, and our biggest dream is to see the future where we don't have to keep helping this child while a parent can do that. So basically, that's what the idea with this program. We are trying to say it's a long-term plan, and it takes process. And some of the girls are not in school at all. Some of them, we're trying to make sure that they're not married off. And for those that we can help at the time before this parent take off, we are doing that with another program now.
Yeah.
This one.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that was kind of like, all right, that's good. So it's a little bit of a pilot project to see if you catalyze, if you lift up the parents, these are the residuals, these are the ripple effects, these are the things that can happen for the girls in the household. Okay. Abby, jump in.
No worries. Okay, so just for context, you have about 3 minutes left, a little bit over 3 minutes. So I'll ask a couple of maybe budget questions, and maybe one more question from Gail after that as well. A few budget questions. They're fairly quick. So in your M&E, you talk about requiring about $1,000, and there's a unit, it says 2 for 500 would lead to 1,000. One comment here is that whenever you write the unit type, it's helpful to state what type of unit that is, to be able to actually see, okay, it's 2 days or it's 2 people or whatever that is. And that actually leads me to the question, what does the M&E cost cover? And can you like just break that down for me?
Yeah, so honestly, this was an assumption, and I think maybe the monitoring and evaluation people can help. This was just an assumption for the tools that we will need to use, the questionnaire we will need to use to be able to pay these people who are actually doing the work to go to the community and do focus group discussions. So it includes like all that together to come.
Okay.
Yeah, to come to that amount. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that. I think in the future, what I would do is really further break it down. So if it's like printing, for example, like having more detail. Whereas I think if you say 500 for 2, I'm like, what does the 2 represent? And like, what's that lump sum really representing, right? So there are 2 options. You can either break it down in the table, so you can really put like every single item, or you can even explain that as well. The other piece, and this is a bigger question, I guess, is it seems like everyone gets startup capital, right? And everyone's getting about, let me just quickly check here. I think everyone gets $28 as a participant in the program in startup capital. Is it guaranteed that everyone will receive startup capital from the very beginning, or is there a final deliverable that they have to submit to be able to qualify for this funding? Do you tell them like from the very beginning, if you participate, you're going to get this money, or to get the money, you have to do X, Y, Z?
No, we don't tell them. Until the very end, we have to decide, okay, so they have been very participatory and they have been able to attend. It's like, I think maybe what is happening with Big Little Fund here, that you have to first participate, and we need to really see that you are doing the work at the end of the day to say, okay, so we had this training for 50 people, but we are going to be able to give the money for these 25 people who have been very committed and have been doing the work and have been being able to show us that really this is going to work, because at the end of the day, we don't want to invest in some of them that don't really want to do the work at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And that's, yeah, perfect. Thanks for answering that as well. And I think that clarifies a lot. In the budget, I would change the number from 50 to 25 just to reflect the amount that you think you'll be giving out at the very end. Gil, do you want to, one final question before we wrap up?
Well, I get going and I lose track of time, so I apologize. Thank you, Abby, for reminding me of the time. And one thing that for everybody here, all of the questions that Abby and I have in a document, we're not going to get to all of them in this session, but we will put them on a Google Doc so that you can go back and see again what we were asking, what other questions went, were on our mind, but we didn't get to ask. So I guess in the spirit of time, why don't we turn it over to Ellie, and she can ask some questions, but then you'll see in our follow-up any other additional questions that we had.
I would love that. And thank you so much for doing this with me. So my question would, what haven't you, from like this proposal, what is a no for you? Like, what's a big no for you from like reading the proposal and you're like, no, that's not what I want to fund?
Wow, that's a great question, because it's also the kind of, sometimes that the question can be posed, what you funder is your first choice, right? And Abby, you're a little bit frozen. Can you hear us? Okay. Well, you are frozen. Maybe you're okay. One thing that when I looked at all of these of your line item budget, I think the one thing I would ask if there was a way, like with the photography, you have a photographer cost of like $435. And I just wondered if there was a way to I don't know, cell phone photos. I think Abby also mentioned this, using a phone to take a photo is less expensive. So there might be a way to trim your budget, in my opinion, with that cost. And then I just wondered about the, I think the translation is really important, but I wasn't clear just because I don't understand what interpreters cost. Are you getting a professional? Is it like a professional interpreter, or is it someone from the community who might be less expensive? I just was curious about where that number came up from. I wouldn't say no to translation, but I'd need to have a little bit of explanation if there's a way to economize that, I guess,
Yes.
right? So those were two things that if I were to trim the budget as a funder, right,
Yes.
I might ask about those. What about you, Abby?
Sorry, I think I got cut off first just a second there, but yeah, I agree with you. I think definitely I had one of my comments on your proposal was definitely the cost of the photographer was extremely high. So like that would be a place I would easily say, like, what are the needs for someone to be there? Is there a possibility for us to do this in other ways? And I think I could look closely. I think I have a few other comments around like just explaining like the startup capital for sure. I think most of the things that are related to the participants, like their travel and all of that, that makes sense. I wouldn't really sacrifice any of that. And that's probably your priority. Like I would not disagree with that for sure. But there are a lot of places where like even things like materials, like stationery or bites and drinks that you're getting, I think that's where I would look for in kind. Like that's an easy in kind for me. So I would definitely look for like corporations. Could they sponsor food? Could they sponsor stationery is definitely one of those things that they can always give access to. So those are a few other things as well. But I thought generally the budget was pretty well done. Just explaining the units, I think, would really help for sure.
Yeah.
And then one other
Okay.
just quick question. In this budget, then, what's the total? You already have gotten $2,300. You've already gotten $2,300 from crowdfunding, and you're possibly going to get another $1,900 from Rotary. So what's the balance that you need? I would be curious to know. I wasn't clear in here in terms of your total budget. Maybe I'm not paying attention here. Oh, so the total, if you're asking Little Big Fund for 5,800, right?
Yes.
Then is so that, and the total budget is 75. That's, yeah. So, but that's all based on if you already have the crowdfunding, you have the 2,300.
Yes, so the total amount that Her Journey to School will contribute there, which is written on the last line, is the amount that comes from crowdfunding and not lottery for sure, because we're not sure if we're going to get that yet.
Yeah, Rotary's tough. But you already have the 2,300? You did that already?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the confusion, I had the confusion too, because I was thinking about the numbers, and like what I didn't understand was that it said crowdfunding is 2,300, but then the contribution from Her Journey to School is 1,425.
Yeah, I was confused about it.
Okay, so because like we didn't want to say that we are going to give all the amount that we have from crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is not only fundraised or does not only go to this one particular activity. So we were able to have this amount so that the other money from the crowdfunding can go to like Paddy Girl program or something else.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think I would just in a bracket, like even if you write 2,300 in a bracket, I would say this much of the 2,300 will go for this project. Just that one additional step will like remove any confusion from the reader. Of course, we are able to have this conversation, which is fantastic. So many times these kind of documents, gets read by like someone in some room, and they aren't usually asking those questions back, right? So remove any like shadow of doubt that they might have at any point by just clarifying, I think would make this even stronger. But yeah, great job. I thought it was a very fantastic document, and you already have a lot of the structure well organized. So congrats on the work you're doing. And we'll definitely, after this session, I'll be sending out emails to each of you with all of the questions. And so feel free to use that for further reflection with your team as well. But yeah, wonderful job. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you so much, you guys. You guys are amazing, and those were very reflective. And I think I will reread it with the team again and see what we can change, add. And I'm looking forward to the questions as well. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. And I think, we spent quite a bit of time, but I hope that we can have the same amount of time for others. It just gets going when you're talking. So thank you. Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience, everyone.
So I know Vandana was off for a couple of minutes. Isha, would you like to go next? And then we can go with Vandana
Yes.
and then, oh, okay, perfect. Gail, you want to kick this off? Oh, I think you're on mute, Gail. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just am not, I gotta just get ready here. Why don't you start, Avi? Because my papers got messed up here a little bit.
No worries, no worries. I've got, let me get started. So Isha, well done on this proposal. I thought it was fantastic. And Gail and I, we both agreed that the what and the why part of your proposal was extremely strong, perhaps the strongest part of the proposal. So really good job on really clarifying, when it started, what's the mission, why you started, your personal story. That's actually true for almost everyone, because everyone put in a lot of that, personal story that we've talked about that allowed for everyone to connect the dots and know why is it that you're doing what you're doing. I guess, I'll start with the kind of order that we have some of these questions in. And so the one question that we had asked around your impact. So you wrote impact in the very beginning. I think it's the third section is the bullet points. By the way, also love the bullet pointing and like the headlining. I think anytime you put headlines, it makes it so much easier for us to follow along. One suggestion there was to switch the word impact with assets, because for us, that's more of an asset. And again, that's an interchangeable word. So like if someone is asking for impact, I would just leave it as impact. But we oftentimes like to say that it's probably helpful to have assets. You've got the library opened, educated X number of people, some of your leadership and communication skills. So all of that is really good. One thing that I remember from earlier in the conversation, this is like maybe week 1 or 2, is you talked a little bit about your university education. And I think it would be helpful to add some more detail around that, because it seemed like that wasn't really reflected here. And I think your personal experience also makes a difference in the work that your organization is doing. One question that we had on this section is, talk to us a little bit more about what you did to educate the 100 students in the past year. What was involved in actually educating 100 students? Was it full day of classes? And was it like all subjects were required? How did you actually go about doing that?
Sure. So basically at the start of the program, we kind of conducted a baseline assessment just to gauge what is the level of students and all of that. And we did it in 2 ways. So we kind of combined primary students in one group who had, weak literacy and numeracy skills, and we divided them in kind of reading skill, in different reading groups. So for example, for the groups that where students didn't know how to read properly. So let's say there was like a group of 20 students, and we were doing, very basic things like alphabet recognition and all. And for a little bit of older students who are a bit more advanced, we were, making sure that they stay in touch with mathematical concepts and basic science concepts and writing skills, so that they don't forget it, because during COVID-19, that was I would say all the reports and further research I did, that was one of the concerns, and it still is, the learning gap it caused. So we had a 2-fold approach, that the students who can read, write, and do maths wanted to make sure their skills stay intact. And for the kids who were young and either at the verge of forgetting those skills or and haven't learned it, we wanted to make sure that they can build up those foundational skills.
So yeah, thank you. That sounds good. And I agree, with everything that Abhi was saying about the way that your proposal's been put together, the cover page, and then the what and the why is very well written. And in terms of these, when you say here that you educated 100 students, I just have to say that as an educator myself, someone who spent years teaching, and I know it's not in your community, but when I see educating 100 students, I get a big picture in my mind, like, wow, that was classrooms, that was curriculum, that was, Ministry of Education approved teachers. And so I think it's good to get a few details or a picture that the educating that was done is super important, and it was relevant. and it was interventionist in some ways, right? It was like remedial, right? So it was to support. It was sort of like there were some informal assessments that were done, if I understand correctly, right? You got the students together, you could informally assess where they were at, and then you intervened. Is that right?
Yes, just to kind of add on to it, we made use of some of the existing resources that were, made by other NGOs in the sector and all to conduct those assessments and stuff. Just because like I and other volunteers, with all the good intentions, we were not trained teachers or anything. And yes, and like schools were closed. So we kind of consulted as many people as we could and just sort of went with it.
Yeah, yeah. Because you and your team are educated and you have high degrees of education. And so you understand when someone isn't reading a sentence correctly, right? Or you understand if they don't know how to, read a certain word, right? Because they don't know what the A and the E sounds are or something like that, right? So that's good to know. And if there's a little bit of something to put in there at some point, especially if you send your grants to people who are familiar with educational grants, just to uphold that you bring not only experience and education personally, but that you are capable of meeting the children where they're at, right?
Yeah,
and
it was
then tailoring. Yeah. That's the way that I understood that. And I think that's an important, I want to say sort of definition of education, right? The education isn't that you built a school and but the education was that you met these children in their gaps right there, right then, because you just had the education and you had the passion and you knew what you were doing. And not everybody, you didn't have to wait, is what I'm kind of saying. And that's the sense I got, if that makes sense. Abhi, you want to go next?
I think to follow up on that, in your impact section, you talk a little bit about planting 350 trees, 100 students have been educated, you've got the career talks. That's a lot. There's a lot going. And for a fairly early stage organization, it's really, really impressive. So congratulations on that. I want to start with that.
Thank you.
Switching gears though, which of these activities, because you're doing a lot for sure. And I think anyone reading this would say, wow, like your team must be always just like working really hard. Which of these activities are you feeling like you're doing your best, like you're getting the best results and you're really good at doing it? And which are activities where perhaps you're not necessarily feeling as confident, having done it for now almost like 2 years, I think?
So, okay, I want to create this distinction. Maybe I should make it more clear in my proposal. So our primary focus is educational activities, running a library, doing different kinds of interventions with children, be it short-term leadership camps or literacy or whatnot, with tree plantation and COVID and all of these. And so what we try to do, because our primary focus are children, but at the same time, we also need buy-in from their parents and community in general, if we want them to be, involved slowly, and we want to mobilize them. So every 2 to 3 months, we try to come up with some kind of activity, such as tree plantation or COVID relief work that we can do. So for example, if I think about education, we need good curriculum, this and that, it's very thought out. But something like tree plantation, it's much simple. You can do it quick and you see quick results. So those activities are meant to engage community members on an ongoing basis and not necessarily a focus area. It's to just keep people engaged based on their interests and local needs.
Makes sense. It's kind of like, oh, sorry, Gil.
No, go ahead.
No, I think that's a good clarification. And I would say even headings of like primary activities and then maybe like secondary activities would allow for a reader to know how much time you're spending. Because I think one of the questions that was there about like, how do you get 350 trees? And like, that seems like a lot of work to do, right? So if your team is getting distracted, not necessarily distracted, but maybe taken off track from what the core work is, has that caused any challenges, or do you feel like it's been easy to kind of almost have a complementary activity while also doing the main educational work that you're doing?
I mean, of course, anything does take effort, but as I said, something like tree plantation, it took us 2 days. Like one day we had to go to the nursery, pick up plants and, dig holes and everything. And then a lot of volunteers from community participated in. It wasn't just 4 people planting 350 trees. It was like 50, 60 people doing it together. So of course, facilitating it, like it took a whole weekend, but I would say in long run, it was kind of good, because then, this is how the community members will get engaged. This is how more people will get engaged. And so, yeah, it was a short-term intervention, but yeah, if like 3 or 4 of us had to do it, then yeah, it would be very time consuming and whatnot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, so I thought your proposal was really well done. I really like the idea of adopting the wing of that school. I think that's like really smart, just like take it on. And I think that that is emblematic of what I get as senses of what you're doing. When you write in the beginning that, you say, education is the great equalizer. We need to provide good quality education. I think you're doing that, but I think you're a wraparound service as well. I think that you're a safety net as well. I think that you're responding to the needs and throwing out all kinds of amazing ideas, whether it's adopting a wing, planting trees, doing intervention with reading. And so just consider if you want to uplift that in your story, because education, unfortunately, for everybody is it's a word that needs to be defined, much like passion is a word that needs to be defined, right? Or, goal. And so you do education, but you do a lot more than that as well. And I like learning. And so then when I read about all these different ways you respond, you're like a response service in some ways, right? Not just with literacy, but with people getting together, with people having digital access, with going into the schools. And I think that's very special. I just wanted to point that out. Having a library, all of those things fall under education, but they also fall under social growth, right? They fall under something more than just the sector of education. And if you think about ways that you might want to describe that, you might open up and change your letter depending upon the group that you go to. If you submit a grant to somebody that only does educational grants, they might miss what you're doing, right? Whereas if you also, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but you do a broad reach that's not.
I don't know about making sense, but you're making me feel so better. I never thought of it in this sense. Like I had a very narrow perspective of what you do. So you kind of made my week with this comment.
So think
I was
about
like,
that.
record last minute.
And I think that's really, I think talk to your team about it and think about it, because unfortunately, there's a lot of cliches. There's a lot of overuse of the term in grant world. We're going to educate. And then you're doing more than educating, right? You're giving life skills. You're giving hope. You're responding. Today, this is what we need to do. And we know how to do it. And we did 350 trees, so we can adopt a wing. Right? That kind of momentum. Yeah. So I guess I don't have any other question at this point. Well, I mean, I have a few questions about the school, the wing, but we might be running out of time. And again, we can share all those questions with you on the Google Doc. But I'm just super curious to know more about, this adopting of a wing. I think that's a cool idea. I mean, all of your ideas, everybody here, are cool, but I just was like, wow, adopt a whole wing. Anyways, go ahead. I'll stop babbling.
The thing is, all the programs we have done, it's kind of, I feel we are acting, there is this game where rats pop up from different holes and you are, like, I don't know, hitting the rats, but then the other rat pops up. I think if we really want to target literacy and the education, first we need to make sure that all students, and again, in village, there are people who are well off, who can afford good schools, but I mean, people from lower economic backgrounds, all the kids have access to basic literacy, because then we can give them life skills, entrepreneurship, this and that. It's a step-by-step process. But I feel our program has almost become little elitist or a bit exclusive, because we can only accommodate 60 to 70 students. But right now there are around 300 to 350 students in primary wing of our school. So I think adopting the primary wing of the school, we can just, supplement 2-3 more teachers via fundraising. Then that will enable us to reach to all the students and will ensure that, everyone is educated. Like after 10 years, like everyone from this particular generation under age of 10 will have good literacy, good foundational skills. So that's kind of the objective here, because right now we might give really good education to these 60, 70 students, but what about other 200 students? We are still not solving the problem completely, right? And second thing is, during COVID-19, it was easy to do it because, I mean, kids could come during the day and they were not going to school. But right now, it's really hard. Although we are giving our services for free and everything, it gets really tiring for children to sit in school for 7 to 8 hours and then to come to us. And I mean, the like kids, they're giving their best. It's not their fault that their teachers are absent or teachers are not in the school. I mean, they're giving their energy. But at the same time, we cannot excuse them in the evening because there are certain concepts that they're not learning at the school, which they should. So I think, and also if I think from an organizational perspective, I know there are a lot of NGOs who run their own schools and whatnot, but considering that no one from our team is working full time on it, and opening a school is so much more expensive. So why not build the current system better? Because government is also making some investments, and if we can, make a bit of investment, if we can improve accountability, then yeah, like we can make it a good school, and then everyone can benefit who is in need.
Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And I agree with what Gail was sharing. I think because, and I think that reference of the rats popping up is actually very relevant. And oftentimes in a lot of the communities that we're serving, where it's not just one problem, right? There's like 7 different problems, and behind those 7, there's like a million different that we don't even understand sometimes. So it is important to be that responder. One kind of quick thoughts, and this is, we'll like pass you for questions because we're in the last seconds here for you, is I think when you're starting to look at like something like adoption of a wing, or especially digital classroom, especially with the digital piece, right? You're getting not only like webcams, but time is up. Things like webcams, you're getting smart TV, speakers, all of these things. One of the questions that you will get, and this is more of a comment, is that in the future you might get questions around the technical knowledge transfer of using these materials, and how do you make sure that you might be adopting it in the short term, but at some point Jivam is going to have someone else in the school independently manage all of these things. So kind of thinking about that in the short term is helpful, and this might be a question that might come up as well. And the final comment just on the budget as well is it was unclear what that amount meant. Is about like 4 lakh, I think, is what you were asking for. And like I had some context. And so when Gail and I were talking, we were like, yeah, that's about like, I don't know if it's about 3,500, but in that range of 3,500 to $4,000. But I think especially if you're asking for a funder abroad, I think just having that translated, I think will be helpful. And also knowing how much of that money are you looking for. I think that clarity for everyone really is like, just putting out a budget doesn't tell me anything. But if you put out a budget and say, out of this like 4,500, I need 700 from you, right? I think that is a very, very clear and compelling ask. So I would just kind of make that clarified as well. But great job. And do you have questions for us? Maybe we can make a couple minutes for your questions before we.
I think one question I have is, I feel a proposal, it does a decent work of kind of putting information, but at the same time, I feel, I mean, you two are very invested in all of us. So, you took the time to read it thoroughly, but I feel in an ideal world, because some donor will be getting so many requests, they might not spend this much time. So like, how can I make it shorter yet get the message across? And I know it's like a very big question with no easy answer, but I would love some pointers. And I think everyone can benefit from it, because yeah, like we have to be short yet very impactful and get a message across. And I struggle with like writing less. So
I personally felt like the size of everyone's proposal was actually pretty good. It was about 7-8 pages maximum. And like, frankly, that's not a bad size. So I wouldn't worry about space. I would worry more about clarity. And the biggest kind of thing is to like make sure, and we can discuss this at the very end, is, making sure that everything you're saying has a clear understanding in someone that has either no context, or in some cases like Gail, a lot of context, because Gail knew a lot about education coming into this. So when she read your proposal, it was like, oh, like I actually know about this space, right? So I wasn't worried about the space, to be honest, when I was reading. But Gail, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that I think that you're a good writer, okay? And I think you have a command of that and that you've done this. And if you want to try to be more concise, right, and do like an executive summary, I think that's a good practice. I agree with Abby that the pages that you've provided us are very clear. I was unclear about the conversion into US dollars, but I can figure that out later. But you know, one thing that I do sometimes when I want to try to see if I can be concise takes me back to this idea that we practiced at the beginning about the 6-word memoir. So I might give myself the task of looking at my 5 pages here and really just being very, just edit. What would happen if I only had to say, you know, what's the core of this paragraph? What are the 2 sentences in this paragraph that really get at the heart? And just edit, and see if you could come up with an executive summary. It's just a good practice, right? And as you say, we all like to write and we want to talk and we want to tell everything, and conversation and rigor of relationship is the way to do it. And I wish everybody in the philanthropy world did it that way, but they don't, unfortunately. But for your own purposes, maybe just give yourself the task of editing it, or give it to somebody that is a good writer friend of yours and say, how would you make this fit into 1 page or 2 pages, and see what the learning is from there. Because you're right, not everybody is going to invest in it, but like we do. But I do think that if you're prepared to do different forms of asking, the long, you know, 50-page ask, the 2-minute ask on the phone, the 5-page request, the executive summary, it just makes you more creative and more flexible in your messaging. But I don't know if that helps.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful. Yeah, and just one clarification. The reason I didn't put foreign currency or American currencies, that because of FCRA, we cannot technically get foreign grants. So there's like not even a point, but if they, and but that would be a very easy thing for us to do. And I see Vandana smiling because she's in similar situation too. We'll be happy to convert it in any currency if we can cut through the bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, there might be, I agree. I understand that, but there might be people who would say, I'm going to just mobile money you. I'm just going to give it to you directly, Isha, like you can have it. Right.
Oh, wow. Then
there are possibilities. There are people who do that, who do just direct proximate leader funding. They don't care if there's a, I mean, Abby, you can speak more about this, and I don't mean to sound naive, but it is possible that you could find people in America who will just say, you know, I'm just going to mobile money you a couple $1,000 because I know how you're going to use it. And it doesn't have to be associated with an institution. Is that right, Abby? Or am I?
Oh, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, there are even organizations of the Pollination Project. If anyone has not taken a look, that would be an example where they give out $1,000 grants, 1,000 every day. And so they give out like $1,000 to like 360 organizations. So you have a really good chance of applying. We're nominators, by the way. So if you want to apply, let us know. We can nominate you for that. They don't care if you have a foundation or if you have an organization. They just want to support you as a person. And so if you apply for $1,000, they will just send you the money. And again, I know the banking in India. We've just been talking to Kristen about the FCRA. And so we understand that like the regulation in India is a little bit more tricky right now. But as an individual, there are people that are oftentimes willing to actually just like transfer money. We have ourselves seen that and actually have also done it in some cases. In some courses that we offer, we do have micro grants. And so we don't ever actually request people, unless they already have a bank account and they can receive it, which is great. 90% of the times we're sending it through mobile money, and it doesn't really matter on our end. It only means that we can make it easier for whoever is receiving that funding as well. But I just took a look at the time and I noticed we've like gone through the first hour. So I will jump us to the next conversation because I imagine we have a ton more questions to go through and some content as well. Gail, shall we jump into a conversation with Vandana now?
Yeah. Is everyone okay with us being, you know, expansive and sort of, you know, taffy pulling more time with each person? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there were 3, 4 of us. It's even helpful. I mean, the ideas that were in Ellie's pitch, the kind of comments you're making, I could see how, a lot of them would be relevant even to like maybe my proposal or even Vandana's proposal. So it's like nice since there's a lot of overlap in kind of what we are trying to do. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. So let's talk, Vandana, are you ready to be on the hot seat?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple of things. I really, first of all, I just want to say there's so much creativity and so much excitement in the work that you're doing. And I really enjoyed learning about all of that, about this art-based learning, because I just do think that many educational models outside of the United States miss opportunities to understand that the creative brain, all the stuff that's back here at the back of our head that's waiting to be unlocked, can only be unlocked through play, through art, through the color red, through physical activity. And I just think that the brain wants to learn less and less often just in a lecture, but more in a doing, right? And so I find that to be very exciting. Just one first question, just because it's going to show some of my ignorance, but there are times when I see that your organization is spelled with 2 A's and sometimes with 1 A. And I know that that sounds like a weird question, but help me understand tell me about the name and the spelling and how you came up with the organization name of Rang Karwan, if I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah, you're saying it correctly. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
So basically, Rang Karwa in Hindi means it's a caravan of theater and arts that and colors. So Rang has 2 means in Hindi. It's also theater and it's also colors. So the idea was because during our pilot, that is also mentioned in the proposal, during our pilot we were actually traveling to different cities and collaborating with different organizations and then working with their communities, and that's where the pedagogy kind of developed into this structure where we were actually using it to talk about gender, to talk about mental well-being, to talk about just critical thinking with kids, or just emotional well-being during pandemic. So we realized that, oh my god, it's creating such a nice beautiful space for people where they feel held. And then there are so many activities, experiential processes where they engage and they go on another level of exploring together and knowing together and wisdom sharing. So that's how the name Rang Karwa came. But the organization is Rang Karwa Foundation, where there are just 1 A's at both the places, and in the name of the project is Rang Karwa with a proper Hindi to English spelling change. Yeah.
Okay. And I appreciate that clarification. And clearly I learned a lot there. And if you could put a definition in English of Rang Karwan, what would those words be?
Rang Karwa is a place where art and theater create spaces for people.
Okay, so when you say in your story here, you have art creates spaces, artists create change, which I love. Is that a definition of Rang Karwan?
Yeah, basically,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe there'd be an opportunity creatively for an uneducated, uninformed reader like myself to see that you've been thoughtful about these 6 words, about your title name, right? About, maybe just sort of throw that out there at the beginning for me to see, oh, I get it. This is connected to that definition, to that cultural approach, right? Something like that. So that's just one of the first things that I was going to comment on. Abhi, your turn.
I mean, just continuing on that, I love the mission statement. I love how clear it is. And I think it's so specific and succinct, so well done on getting to this mission statement. I know we worked through different iterations, so good job on that. One quick question, one quick comment, and then one quick question. One comment was that you mentioned a lot of partners you've worked with in the pilot. You've done a lot of really great partnerships. I didn't see a lot of logos, or not logos, but links. And I would definitely, like, my comment would be to add links to every single organization, Instagram page, website, whatever it is. Oftentimes I was curious what these partnerships were, and you mention the partnership, but you don't mention what the partnership is. And so I think going one level deeper, and this is also what I was asking Ellie, right? Like, what did you do with this person, or what did you do with this organization? I think that really helps a person understand. So that's the comment. The question I have is, you mentioned having participated in 3 incubators so far. What was missing in the first incubator or the second incubator, which led you to participate in the third one? And like, why participate in another incubator? What do you hope to achieve from this current one, which seems to be the one, I guess the one you're participating in, and she's the first. Do you feel like sometimes that's taking some of your valuable time away from building the organization, or do you feel like you're getting a lot of value from each of these incubators?
I think all 3 of them were very, very important for me, depending on which stage I was as a social entrepreneur when I started Rangkarwa. So Pravah happened when there was a lockdown, and the Change Looms. Change Looms was an incubator that actually held my hand and brought me into the entrepreneurship world, because before Change Looms we were just a bunch of practitioners actually trying to do things, and Change Looms gave the structure to the organization, that this is how you do system thinking, this is how you should actually, this is how your processes in the organization should be. So they introduced us to the local Indian concept of development sector and how an organization is being run in this country. And then She's the First was very it's very specific on my learnings as a person, as a woman running an organization, as a young person running an organization, and how do I learn more as a founder and as a leader. So it's my development, it's my very personal development as a person and as a founder, as a leader of the organization. And the Germinators was actually a very fun experimental incubator that kind of helped us in our one of the projects here. And their idea was to just give money to people and just see what happens. So do experiment and we'll see what happens. So all 3 of them played their own different role in our projects. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thanks for clarifying. And I think even the staging of it, in brackets, putting like which year and maybe adding some of that context. Otherwise it feels like, I've noticed in the past, like folks are like in 5 different programs and you're just stretched between like one Zoom call versus another, and you're not able to actually go out to the community. So thanks for clarifying. Gail, passing it to you.
So in this proposal, one of the problems that you want to address is the quality, tell me if I'm understanding this, the quality of sex education.
Yes.
Okay. For a particular age group.
Yes, for a particular age group and people living in a particular context, particular city, a particular region of the country.
Great, right. Okay. So it's very honed into this community, this group, this sort of mindset in that area, right? And the way that you want to do that, and I understand the importance of it and why the problem needs to be addressed. It is a problem, I get it. And you've explained why it's a problem well. And the way, if I understand this, is that you want to develop a pilot program in this particular context and location, right? And to do the pilot program is to do research first, and then the research is done by fellows,
yeah.
Right?
No, it's done by the team.
It's done by the team. Okay. I guess I gotta help me understand the steps for because you want to develop a curriculum, is that correct?
Yeah.
So the curriculum is like Z, right? Or no, help me understand the steps. I was a little confused about the different steps.
Okay. So initially the team, I mean the Rangkarwa team, will be researching about the different kind of sex education curriculums that are already existing in this region, and also talking to the teachers, talking to the parents, trying to understand where the kids are right now, and this will be the research part, and this part will also kind of help us get all the permissions from the schools and the all the official stamps that we need to go ahead with this project. So the research, once the research is done, then we'll collaborate with different organizations. This research will also kind of help us design the training of the fellows that comes in the later stages. So we will be researching about these things, and then we will be collaborating with different organizations, and then mobilizing these fellows from with help of these different organizations, spread across the country, who will help us mobilize these fellows. And there will be an interview round and all these things. And then once the fellows are here in Champawat, in this city, then they will be going to the different then there will be training. We will be training with them around the idea of gender, the nuances of gender and sexuality, and the child psychology, because they will be working with children, the pedagogies that we use. So it's theater and applied theater and theater of the oppressed, all these things that we do. And then the next step will be them for the next 6 months going to the schools and actually working with the kids, whatever they have developed through the training.
Okay, so the main role of the fellows is to implement
Yes.
the curriculum. So the fellows, okay, and you would train the fellows.
Yes, we will train. So the pilot is to develop the curriculum. The pilot is so that they go to these schools for 6 months with a rough structure and with a rough curriculum, and then they actually work with these kids, and session by session they make progress in their curriculum by their observations, by the reflections, by the impact, by the change that they're seeing in the behavior, by the kind of things they're noticing are changing or developing. And then by the end of the 6 months, then we'll have all these data from all these sessions where they actually held sessions on gender, on sexuality, on identity, on mental well-being. And then this data will be processed and collated together to actually design the curriculum that the next batch of fellows will actually implement in the schools. So the first pilot is to design the curriculum. An
Okay.
in-depth curriculum. Yeah.
Okay. Abhi, you have a question?
Something related to the government school, because it seems like all of this will be working with, like all of the fellows will be working in government schools. And in your R&D phase, which is about a month, it seems like you're trying to get MOU signed from the government. And I imagine without that, it's quite difficult to work in government schools. Have you already initiated that conversation? And do you think a month will be enough to be able to actually get MOU signed through the government, knowing the government as well?
So we already are working in these government schools, not all 10, 12 of them, but we are working in 2, 3 already. And the chief education officer is already in touch with us, and they have been very supportive, and they actually, invited us that if you have something, we'll get the MOU signed. Don't worry about it. So yeah, it's that.
Thanks for that clarification. Thank you. Yeah.
So with the, I do have a couple of other questions. So with the collaboration with the other organizations, so who are they and what are they going to do? Like, how's that? Are they really, really different from what you do? Or tell me more about those organizations, please.
So these collaborations will help us in 2 ways. One of them is going to be the training. So once there are different arts-based organizations across India, and there are people with 30 years of experience in facilitation and arts-based pedagogies. So we'll kind of invite them during the training to train the fellows. So there's one, and there are also organizations that are fellow organizations who are working around gender and sexuality and ASRHR, sexual and reproductive health. So these organizations will also be coming for a week, for 2 days, for 3 days, depending on their availability, and then engaging with the fellows and training them about their work and different nuances of the training. And then the second level is to just help us get the fellows. So if an organization is working in a region of Maharashtra, so they will be actually seeing all the people who have been engaged with their organization. Oh, this person is actually very bright, maybe they should go to the fellowship. So they'll actually kind of recommend the fellowship to them, help them fill the application, get through the interview. So yeah.
So are they private organizations? I mean, how come they're not already like going into the school as an organization themselves? I guess
these organizations will just help us get the fellows. So there are organizations working with youth. So because we need people above the age of 21 and already kind of have a graduate degree or something like that. So we need an organization working in Kerala is working with youth. So we need them to help us out and find the a good fellow who is motivated and can engage with us.
But the research and development is being done just by your team, not by these other organizations. They don't already have some of this information.
Yeah. So that's what the collaboration is. They'll either help us design the training and do the training with the fellows, or they'll just help us mobilize the fellows, depending on the area that they work in. If they don't work in education, maybe they'll just help us mobilize a fellow.
Okay, I think the reason I'm still pushing on this, and I think I'd want to have more conversation, and we can, I'll put these questions in there, in the document, is that I'm just being tough here, is that if I'm a funder, I need to, as I'm listening to you, I need to know from you, what is the one thing that I really, really need to fund, or what is the one thing that you want me to fund, right? So if you have these collaborations in place and your team and the organizations are going to be finding the fellows and are going to be doing the research, I'm like, well, maybe they don't need my help for that. So, and I couldn't tell from the budget. So I would just encourage you, and I'm happy to have more conversations with you, to just sort of peel back very specifically, what is it that you want me to fund in all of this? Because some of it seems like it could happen without funding, but I could be misunderstanding, right? So I don't know, Abhi, am I making sense to you? Like, how would you elaborate on that?
For sure. I think, yeah, agree with Gail. And Vandana, sorry, you were saying something, so go ahead.
I was just saying that once the collaboration part and the mobilization and training part is just, I think 2-3 months that I've mentioned. But the actual part where the fellows actually go to the schools and then do these trainings and then come back, because they're working with 2-3 schools in a week, and the living part. So they'll be living here together, and then we'll have all these expenses because they're living, the food and accommodation and their training and their local conveyance. All these, expenses is something that we are actually worried about.
Yeah. Okay. That's clear, because I thought, wow, if these fellows are going to give up their time and move and be in a community for 6 months, they want to be comfortable, right? They got to have a nice, and I thought that is something that is going to be a gap to fill, but I wasn't clear in the proposal that would be like your first choice, right? Or what you definitely, as you say, are worried about, right? And I think it's important to have that conversation. So thank you for explaining it. Yeah.
And I think I would definitely, like, if there's a way to like even prioritize it, and this might be for everyone else to try as well. Like, if you can put all of the most important things on the top, it's even easier. And like, you can scream it, right? Like, I need to pay these fellows. Because what I noticed is that I was looking through the budget, and you're paying about 5,000 rupees per person for a month, right? And if you're bringing a graduate level, person, that's probably not a lot of money. And yes, you're providing housing and some of these things, but I imagine you're already like cutting a lot of costs to make sure that they're there. And so that's your urgent priority. Like, you need to make sure that's covered. And then the furniture, I mean, young people can sleep on the floor, like no problem, but definitely making sure that they're able to actually even be there first is important. So just, yeah, put it in block letters and say, this is my need, this is my ask, this is what I need from you right now. And then it becomes an easier yes or no type of decision as well. Yeah, there's a few other questions that I think we'll probably send it back in the comments, but before we wrap up, do you have any questions for us, Vandana?
No, not right now. I think I just need to think. I'll definitely write an email to you, Abhi, or Gail.
Yeah, and we'll put all these questions in the document. And thank you for understanding that I'm only being rigorous because of what the rigor is that you want to do. And I appreciate that and respect that. And I hope that you feel that it's been a safe place, all of you, for us to honor what you've been doing, but also to say, what's this next thing to think about? That's how we would like to be able to help you. So thank you for hanging in there.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into our final one. And before that, one kind of thing I'm noticing with time, we're probably not going to have too much time when we start like dive into M&E. And so if everyone's okay, what I will do is Gail and I, we're actually going to connect on Monday. We have a weekly session. And if you're all okay with it, what I can do is actually record like a 30-minute video talking a bit more about M&E so that you do have some content that you can take with you. We can send that over to you all so that you actually have that with you. We planned a couple of activities, but we'll probably skip that. And then we'll send you that video so that you have that. We really break it down in similar ways. So we'll do that. Awa, are you here with us?
Hello, if you guys can hear me.
Hi. Welcome. Thanks for joining, and sorry about the technical difficulty. Great to have you here. Gail, do you wanna get started?
Just a minute, I gotta find my notes here. Well, I wanna, or our notes. So thank you for being patient, Awa, and hanging in there, everybody. And I hope that all of these conversations become learning opportunities, like little fishbowl opportunities, microscopic opportunities. So Awa, I have to say, first of all, that I went to your website and your Instagram, and the awards ceremony, oh my gosh, it just looked so glamorous and so exciting. And when you provided, the information about it, of course, readers are going to instantly Google somebody, right? And they're going to instantly go to like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, because that's just what we do, right? So I learned a lot through those links, right? By going and checking it out. And I saw this fancy hotel, it looked like, or conference center, and cars driving up to the front door and beautiful people getting out and walking up. And it made me think of like the Academy Awards or the Oscars or something here in the US. It was so beautiful. And then there was one video of a woman who, I think it was on your Facebook page, and she's like was doing a spoken word poem. And I was just mesmerized by all of that, and had pictures of like the audience and stuff. And so I just wanted to say that there's a lot of information that a reader of a grant can get that either aligns with the proposal or just expands the proposal, or actually causes a little of more kind of questions about a proposal when they go and look at your social media, what your social signals are, right? I found myself curious when I was watching it and then after I read your proposal, I was looking for the young girls that your organization is supporting. And I was just, help me understand, and this is kind of diving into a bigger picture thing, but if She Awards has this overall goal to recognize achievements by successful women in Gambia, and in the process of giving those awards and recognizing their achievements, they're inspiring the girls in the villages, correct?
Yes.
Where were the girls in the villages at the ceremony? Or how did that work, that you got the, I don't know if I'm being clear here, but I felt that in some ways the ceremony, which is what you're asking for money for, is for this award ceremony. How does that social media, or how does that award information and impact get to the girl that lives kilometers away?
Yes. So I don't know if you've seen that we have several categories, about 19 of them. So some of the categories focuses mostly on the older women, and some of them also focuses on girls. For instance, we have the Youth Excellence Awards that is looking at girls that are in leadership. Also, you have the Sisi Sawani Award, which is focused on girls that are excelling in the rural Gambia. So I'm not sure you saw those ones. So even though it's really been hard trying to get some of them that are in the rural Gambia, considering the fact that there's limited funding and there's not a lot of opportunities. But we have categories where we've highlighted and recognizing people that are in the rural Gambia. For instance, if you look at the Sisi Sawane Award, it looked at young people that were doing very well in the rural Gambia. For instance, there were young girls that were trying to mentor school kids to teach them and all of that. So those people were really doing outstandingly well, not just for themselves, but they were inspiring other people to do more. And I feel like it's not just about having girls around or having them celebrated, but the fact that we get to have them as part of the event to see what is happening, to write to institutions that help us to get some of these girls from the rural Gambia for them to come and attend the event to see what is happening in a way that will get them inspired. So I don't know if that answers your question. If
Yeah,
it doesn't,
well,
yes.
no, it does answer the question, and it's a conversation. And I was aware that you had different categories, and then the proposal that you wrote is that you wanted to have another one of these award ceremonies. And
Yes.
I think the award ceremonies sound really interesting. And I was just not following when I saw social media of the award ceremony, and I'm a funder, and I would be funding that award ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
But I would want the young girls to know about it. I just, I think if you can provide maybe a little bit more of,
Oh, okay,
you know what I'm
okay.
saying?
How
Like
we
I
want
was trying to
to
piece
get
together what I visually saw. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna ask if you were asking about how we intend to get the young girls to participate in the process.
Yeah.
Okay, so usually we send out this online application or a form wherein people nominate all these people, and we also write to the National Youth Council. It's an organization in the Gambia that works in all of the regions. So they have offices in all of the regions, and they're able to reach out to some of these people that are in the rural Gambia as well as in the urban Gambia. So we write to them to also help us spread the word that we're calling for nominations, that we want to celebrate women and in a way that will encourage young girls. So if in their particular communities or in the areas that they're working, they can help us, spread the forms so that people can nominate some of these young girls that are doing very well in their communities that people don't know about. So that is one way that we approached it this year, but hopefully we would work with other collaborators that are in the communities as well to help us reach these girls at a very wider level.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Avi, do you want to jump in? And
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on assets, so I'll ask maybe some of my asset questions here. So in your assets, you mentioned quite a few different things. You've got the donors, the volunteers, the women and the girls, She's the First as a partnership. In the donor section, you mentioned a couple of organizations, UNFPA, UNDP, and Gail and I, when we read it, we understood what these organizations are. And at the same time, I think you want to further just clarify what these organizations are, but most importantly, what kind of support have they provided? So my question to you is, what has, you say such as UNFPA and UNDP, what specifically have they contributed as a donor to the SHE Awards in the past?
Okay, so during the first edition, we worked with UNFPA and they were able to provide us with financial support. So they usually maybe call us for a meeting and ask us about the budget and how they can fit into the budget and if there are other sponsors or how they can also come in. So they were able to support us financially. So but this year with UNDP, it was a different approach because they asked us about the things that we wanted to do, the vendors that we wanted to work with, and so they were working directly with the vendors, so we were just implementing, but they were paying the people that were giving us the services in that way. So that was how they supported us. Yes.
Sure. And I think just that clarification, right? And I think this is the third time we're saying this, so it's applies for the whole group, I think, is that just saying like donors, right? Like that doesn't tell me as much as you telling me UNFPA does this or UNDP is paying for your vendors. Amazing. That's like, you should be like proud and like write a whole sentence that, this is how UNDP is supporting it rather than just putting in bracket UNDP. So that was my kind of asset question there. And I know Gail has a couple of asset related questions as well, but I wanted to quickly ask one thing. It seems like your team is also part of the volunteer pool. Is this entire event organized by a volunteer-led group, or is anyone getting paid to actually run the event at any point? Am I getting?
Maybe you're frozen.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you are.
Okay. Abby?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I don't think my question might have gotten cut off. So I was just asking if you could tell me a little bit more about the team. Is there anyone in the team that actually, is this completely volunteer-led organizing of the SHE Awards, or is someone actually compensated for like their work during the organizing of the event?
So during the other months, we're all volunteering. But let's say if the event is coming and someone is really very much investing their time into it, and because some of them have to go to school and some of them are working with other institutions, so we compensate them. But it's not a compensation that is a payment. It's just usually the compensation that the UN system has for volunteers. So it's not like a form of a payment, but it's like a token usually, if that makes sense.
Small. Yeah, it's fairly small usually, right? Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the long-term sustainability and kind of making sure that this exists in the long term. And I didn't in the budget in this year as well. It doesn't seem like you're like hiring a full-time staff. Although I imagine you have to plan 12 months, like you have to do all the work throughout the year, right? So I would recommend, and maybe like a thought there is to create a vendor, because those organizations do pay vendors, and having a vendor that is SHE Awards, that's a separate entity that actually is the organizer, I think would allow for you to make sure that you as an organization is getting paid so that you can actually pay yourselves and your team for the time that you put to put this together. So that's just an idea / thought that I wanted to share. Yael, I know you had a couple of asset related questions.
Well, I think they might be, those are great questions and kind of follow up to what Abby was asking, but also I want to loop back to my confusion, I guess, about your project request and the budget and then the assets and all that. So the request that you've written here is to say that you would want to have 13,000 US dollars to expand work by capturing SHE Wins, and I'm not quite sure what SHE Wins is, and to use its partnership to support remarkable women and girls in rural Gambia by getting their detailed stories and their journeys and to help them make strides, okay? And so then I look at your budget, and your budget is all for this one event, one evening, right? Of like, the venue, the award plaques, the program design, the judges' money, and I'm not quite clear about how the one event for $13,000 meets the requests that you've written here about capturing SHE Wins and capturing the stories and journeys of young girls in rural Gambia.
Yes, thank you very much for that. So it might not be very much reflected on the budget, but so we had this idea of having to film stories of these women that are in the rural Gambia, trying to have interviews with them to talk about their journey, to talk about how far they've come and the strides that they've registered. That was something that we wanted to do. And, it was an idea, even though it's not incorporated in the budget, but it was something that I thought about to have it, shown during the event, so that when people come to attend the event, it's a very good opportunity to show them what these women are doing, and also to have it on our YouTube channel. So that was the whole idea about that.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, is that what you what you're asking for here in this paragraph titled request is to make kind of like a storytelling video, a promotional video, some sort of visual that you would present at the ceremony,
Yes.
right? That sort of brings to life the stories of the girls that you want to inspire by the awards. And that's good information. And I think, and She Wins seems to be like a partner that would help you with that. But I think maybe think through how you're writing your request and what your ultimate goal is and how that connects directly to one night event. What's happening in that event? You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of clear, but it's not fully clear to me as a reader.
For sure. Great question.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did have a question on She Wins, but I think you clarified that. I had a quick question about the selection process. It seems like you're getting about 600 nominations, and it's probably going to grow because you're obviously growing this program quite a bit. What's the selection process like? And is it like your team that's doing selection? And if so, isn't 600 quite a lot to go through to be able to decide for 19 slots? How are you going through all of it?
Yes, so like I said earlier, we have an open request for the public to nominate these women and girls. And then from there, we have a committee that's separate from the team. We have a committee of judges. They look into all these nominations, and then they come up with the final list of nominees.
Okay.
So we email the nominees, the final list of nominees. We get their biographies, their pictures, you know, and if possible, we have an interview with them to get to know about the work that they're doing, so that we have that out there on our socials and people get to know about them. And from there, we take all of these information that we have about the nominees to the judges, back to the judges, for them to, you know, look at it. And then for each of the categories, there's someone, you know, obviously there's someone who's really more out there and someone who's really doing better than the others, even though they're all doing, you know, very well and they're all in the same sector. There's obviously someone who's going to emerge as winner. So it's all the committee who works on the selection process and how everything goes. So at some point in time, we wanted to consider having, how's it called again? We wanted to consider having votes, but I don't know if that's something that we want to do. Also, we want it to be different from other award shows. So because of that, we were not really sure if that is something that we should go ahead with. So we've been giving everything to the committee, and they've been really doing well with that over the years. So I guess I would have to have a meeting with the team, and we would really have to think about whether we need to incorporate a voting system or not.
Yes. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think just that clarification is really helpful. When I read that section about the 600, my immediate thought was like anyone having to deal with that many applications or nominations is just a lot, and like having a committee is helpful. And I think further explaining that in the budget too would, like, if you're like the committee members, if they're getting paid, because it does seem like you have some allowance for judges and volunteers, but not necessarily for committee members. So maybe that's something you want to like reflect of some sort, or perhaps they are the volunteers as well. So I think just that clarity was helpful. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So also all the nominations were narrowed down to around 68.
Wow.
So you can, yeah.
And then from 68, you went to 19, basically, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helpful. Very helpful to see.
But all 68, we posted about them and their work and what they do. And also during the event, we have videos showing what they do and all of that. So they also come and interact with some of the girls that were in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just want to, you know, underscore that I really appreciate that you're taking a unique, different sort of like side door approach to this you know, issue of uplifting young girls, making them feel that hopeful, letting them know that a lot is possible, creating possibly mentorships between those women who have already been very successful and those young girls, you know, who are going to rise up. I appreciate that side door approach. And just know that when you're doing it a little unconventionally and you're asking for money, just be really clear that you can prove the connection between the event, right, and the young girl. And just be really clear so people don't miss the point and the connection that you're making, because it's not like you're taking money and giving it to the young girl. You're giving it to this woman who's then serving as a model, and that's really makes a lot of sense. And just keep underscoring that you know that impact from the awards is getting into the girl's life, right? And that there's this looping and this, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
That's
and
true.
one
Makes
piece,
a lot of sense. Thank
sure,
you.
and one piece on the budget that I thought about that I wanted to quickly share, because you mentioned this award that I'm forgetting the name, but it was named after someone. And when we were looking through like your social media, like all of the awards seem to have some connection, like with the name of a person
Two of the awards. So the other one is the Florence Mahoney Award for Women in Academia. So
Yeah.
Florence Mahoney is the first Gambian woman to earn a PhD.
Wow.
So
Perfect.
it's in a way celebrating her legacy,
Uh-huh.
because, you know, we've not had a lot of women encouraged to go to school during her days, and having someone, and she's still alive, by the way. So we
Huh?
named that award after her to celebrate women in academia.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, I saw that. I think that was the one
not,
that I saw. Oh no.
not just, let's say,
Wi-Fi. It's always tricky. I know. I mean, I think what's really interesting, and this might be
yes, not
relevant.
not not
Your Wi-Fi seems to be disconnecting a little bit. Maybe you can try with the
yes,
video off.
because she's a role model to all of us, and it's only befitting that we name that award. Sissy is a young person.
Oh, just heard you. Okay. Can you hear us now?
I didn't hear that part. Sorry.
No. I think the Wi-Fi got connected for a second, so we
Okay.
lost you for just a
Okay.
second. But I just wanted
Hello.
to make a quick comment on that, was that if you've named two after two really incredible people, as you just mentioned, and I think that context was helpful, one fundraising idea in this case is that there might be an opportunity for you to name some of the awards based on some of these organizations or people and actually be able to have some kind of an endowment. And so the person, for example, the person you just mentioned, if she's alive and she has a foundation or she's doing really good work, there's room for her to be able to actually kind of pay it forward for future people to receive these awards, right? So just one idea that I wanted to share. Sorry, I need to cough.
Oh my gosh, the time has just gone by so much. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
I think, yeah, thanks, Gail, for doing all these questions. Did you have any overall comments based on the hot seats? Thanks, Awa, as well. And yeah, Gail, any final comments?
Sorry about that. My internet was disturbing for a little.
No, I think, Abby, what do you think now? We're coming up to the end of the 2 hours, and I know that it went way over, but I do think that it's just always so interesting and helpful. I think a lot can be learned through this, and maybe we as Little Big Fund have learned that we can have just more time on the schedule for the hot seat stuff because it's just quite engaging. So what do you want to do, Abby, in terms of the M&E portion? And
yeah, we'll set up a time. So on Monday, Gail and I are touching base, and we've got about a couple hours to discuss, course and some feedback, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And what we'll do is we'll record like a separate video that just is about M&E. We'll put it on YouTube, and then we'll send that video out to you. And what I'll do is I'll send you your feedback and that video at the same time, so you can look at your feedback and start making any changes and watch the video. I'll talk about some of the next steps now, because I think that might be helpful for you all to see what it means to like participate in a Little Big Fun course. And then we'll like save up some time at the very end if you have any questions. So just kind of quickly share some of this. And Gail, are you okay with doing that video next week on Monday? I didn't necessarily check in with you, but we can just record that on.
Yeah, sure. Of
Okay,
course.
cool. So I just wanted to share a couple of kind of quick next steps. These are different things that we offer to organizations like yourselves. And so if this conversation has been helpful, if this course has been helpful to y'all, this is definitely what we offer at a larger scale to organizations throughout the year. Once you take a course, it's an opt-in process, so you can opt in to be part of the programs that we offer. They're always available for you at no cost. So like you could just like come in and join whenever you want. There's no pressure. The first thing is a monthly gathering, which we call the Little Big Convening. There's one happening next Wednesday. And so it's a gathering with social impact leaders. We sometimes invite funders, storytellers around the world. It happens usually on the second Wednesday of each month, and it's open for you and your team. So if you want to invite your co-founders or your teammates, like feel free to do that as well. Each month I'll send you an email. Every month I send you this and say, hey, we have this great speaker. If you would like to join, all you have to do is say yes, and I'll invite you to the list. If you do want to attend next week's event, I'll share who's coming and you can decide to do that as well. We also have a ton of opportunities that come to us. We have a pipeline, list of pipeline partners that are always excited to connect with social impact leaders like yourselves. So I mentioned the Pollination Project, so they are always receiving nominations from us. We are partners with the Resolution Project, with Peace First, with the Watson Institute, with the University for Peace. So there are a lot of partners that are in our network, and if you want those opportunities, we usually will, send them out to you all. And if you want to have access to that, we are always there to nominate and support you on that front as well. And finally, office hours. And so I know we did a couple of office hours, and it's very similar to this kind of conversation. It's 15, 20 minutes, really packed, right? A lot of content. But if you're stuck somewhere with your proposal, if you're like, oh, like I'm not really understanding this one idea of fundraising, we offer these office hours usually like once or twice a year, especially happens towards the end of the year when you're creating a budget. If you want to talk about 2023, in a couple of months, we'll schedule an office hour and sign up for it. Usually there's only like 8 slots. It goes really fast. But look out for an email and sign up for that. In addition to that, you can always reach out to us. So you can always send an email to Gail and myself and say, hey, Abby, like I'm writing this proposal, really feeling stuck, or here's a question that I have for you both. And we try our best to kind of get back to you with that as well. And sometimes we'll schedule calls as well. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to make sure we don't forget to share with you so that you can always make the most of these as well. We are getting more active on social media, so I've started sharing some more opportunities there. So if you aren't already, and I know I'm following all of your organizations, if you aren't already, follow Little Big Fund, and we will be posting funding opportunities there and any other things that come our way. So we're always going to be keeping you in mind for any opportunities, and we'll definitely share that along. Sorry, before I finish, next week we have a convening with Aradhana Guru. She's speaking on the 15th of June. It's an hour-long session. Aradhana is an experienced project manager with a demonstrated history of working in the nonprofit organization sector, focusing on impact through humanitarian and development programs. She's currently the country manager for VIAMO, which is a fairly large development organization that uses digitalization for development in rural areas. And she's formerly worked at World Vision and the UNDP, among others. So if you're interested to go attend this event and haven't already done it, just let me know and I'll add you to the calendar invite. Usually the format is fairly simple. It's a small group and we sit together like we're in a coffee shop and we just chat, like Gail and I, we just ask questions to them and we just have a friendly chat, and you're always open to ask questions and network with them. Aradhana has also offered to do one-on-one office hours. So if you're interested in that, we can also set that up for you later in the summer as well. I think that's my last piece. Again, watch out for that video that we'll send out on Monday. Any final questions? We still have a few minutes, so we can still answer a couple of quick questions. And Gail, am I missing anything that you want to share in terms of kind of continuing to be involved with Little Big Fund?
Oh my gosh, no, I just hope that you all do. I hope I get to see your beautiful faces and hear your lovely voices in some way in the future. You're going to always be a part of the Little Big Fun family. And we are also going to talk to She's the First and just find out, I know that you have a long-term sort of commitment with them. You're gonna be traveling with them. I'm not traveling, but I mean, they're going to be mentoring you for like another year and a half or something, right? And so we may offer to them, and if you think this is a good idea, let them know, give them feedback on this experience and what it was like and how it helped or how it didn't help you. And we may suggest to them that we return in, let's say, 6 to 8 months with all of you and see where it's gone, see where your business plan has changed, see how your grant and funding requests have changed. And maybe we do like a Bootcamp 2.0, right? And keep that a little bit more formalized with She's the First, since we know that you'll be connected with She's the First for another year. So yeah, fill out the feedback form. We'll talk to She's the First. We'll see you at the convenings, and we will also just be always available. Just send us emails if you ever have a question about something.
For sure. And before I forget, I have 2 things written, which is record and take photo. And I always forget to take photo. So it would be great to take a quick picture if you're all willing, if you can come on camera, just of the group, and I'll make sure to send that over to CC as well. So if you want to join us for a quick picture, I'll set up I feel like we've done a million of these Zoom photos by now for sure, but it never gets old. It's our best option. So 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And please take 2 minutes right after this if you can. It's a very quick feedback form. It really helps us understand how effective this course is for helping folks in our network. So please do provide us with that feedback. And yeah, any final questions before we wrap up for this final session?
No, just thank you so much. I think I might be speaking for all the fellows here. It was really nice just getting to know both of you and working closely with you. And I like how, open and collaborative both of you are. And I know we'll have like more sessions with different people and whatnot, but I think because there were multiple sessions and you're also supporting us offline, so we almost built a relationship. And yeah, thanks for being like so accommodating and taking this much time for us.
For sure. We love, this is our favorite part of the work that we do, is we spend a lot of time, trying to build relationship and partnership. And then the best part is actually being able to work on, different proposals and trying to further understand the work that such impactful work that organizations like yours are doing. So it's been a privilege for me and for Gail, I'm sure, to be here every single week and spend this kind of 2 hours with you all on a Friday. So thanks for being part of the course, everyone. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And if there aren't any final comments or questions, we will follow up with a quick email. I'll send this feedback form once again if you don't have it. And yeah, we'll stay in close touch. And once I send that M&E video, if anyone feels like they're not clear on concepts, just shoot us an email. We can set up some more time to do more one-on-one work on your M&E as well. But
you're all doing amazing change making things, and your visions are awesome, and I really admire you all for all the work that you're doing. It's all really important and it must be done. So keep going.
Thank you, everyone. And enjoy. I hope you all make it to Kenya and enjoy your time together. Send us a selfie if you can. It will make us so happy to see you all together. So do send that. And Ellie, I'll send our WhatsApp numbers too, so you have that. And we'll hopefully get to see all of you together in person as well. So enjoy the time, enjoy your summer ahead, and we'll definitely stay in close touch. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend ahead. Bye.